I think the corporate structure can be compatible with knowledge production. The classic example would just be the Rand Corporation. Though arguably that's bootstrapping off of the national defense state as was built in the 1940s, right? Military industrial complex. But yeah, the Rand Corporation produced decent research. I think Microsoft is a corporate body, produces good research. In Microsoft's, little corner, Bell Labs arguably did the same thing. So it can be a good spot to do research. It's not necessarily the most natural space, but it solves the problem of creating socioeconomic niches, right? And it at times produces these islands of economic abundance. So I don't think the profit motive is actually that helpful in generating knowledge. It can be very helpful in generating or encouraging practical implementation of knowledge. So I think that perhaps there's this very subtle distinction much as exists between between production of knowledge and conservation of knowledge. There might exist a subtle distinction between the application and the production of knowledge. Now, I think if someone is claiming to merely produce knowledge with having no thought as to what it'll be used for, I think they are lying, or rather they are confused about their own motivations, because I think almost all knowledge production priorities have embedded in them, right? Just as you might have something embedded in a market. I think everyone has embedded intent in, what is most interesting to them, what is joyful, what is restorative, and that this means that there is like kind of a teleology of knowledge, right? Cool. So I hope that at least answers the question somewhat.
Well, I mean, I wanted to ask that because I figured it would be perhaps somewhat controversial, but I was curious to know, even if you were to sort of step back from any one particular kind of institution,
Sure.
A corporation or a university, just sort of put those models that exist to the side and just kind of think in an sort of ideally, what are the fundamental principles of an institution, which is sort of setting out
Knowledge
with the
production?
purpose of knowledge production and distribution. Yeah.
I mean, you have to have a situation that one's socioeconomic position is not endangered by producing excessive knowledge, yet it is not built up by producing fake knowledge. So in other words, the disinformation incentive has to be very low, right? In both ways, both in faking production, faking knowledge, faking stuff, even when you don't have it, and in the direction of not being punished for producing the wrong object. Now, again, here, I will say there is something subtly problematic with the perspective of academic freedom and even freedom of speech that I don't think we have a good social technological solution to. I lean in that direction because I don't have a better solution, but there is a subtle problem. If you take my argument about the implicit embedded intent in knowledge production being true, then it is valid to consider certain kinds of knowledge production evidence of bad faith action. So my view right now is like, we actually are desperate for knowledge production. So even knowledge produced in bad faith should be rewarded and should be used, but some of it definitely is produced, for antisocial reasons, right? And I think this is the real intuitive, like sometimes the jock and the nerd, right? The nerd sometimes has a point, though he's not going to put it into words. Oftentimes the nerd is disdainful of the jock and does look down on them, and is in fact mean-spirited towards the jock. They merely don't have the power to like exercise it over them. So I think that sometimes the crackpot is actually ill-intentioned towards society. And that's like the small part of this persecution complex that is real, right? So I started by sort of mocking society's like firm policing, social policing between the barrier of a professional thinker and crackpot, because the reality is people, if they follow thought, will end up on both sides of the barrier. But there is a reason and there is an interim solution that society has adopted, right? So I can't really just invent a better social technology on the spot. I think that would be, there are too many things to factor. Like there's, it's honestly the the work of a lifetime. In great founder theory, the creation of these new, very excellent social technologies that solve problems of this type is the mechanism through which history is driven forward, right? More so than material production, because I feel material production exists in a necessary symbiosis with that. So I think that this is it's the work of a lifetime. It's the work of genius. It's, for now at least, I would say that, you know, I think it is beyond my like intellectual authority to speak on that.